Well, hello everyone. This is part 3 of my early years working on cruise ships. And I was kind of looking at the video that I did yesterday and realized that I kind of drifted off on a tangent when I was in the middle of telling a story. So I thought I would go back and finish that up and tell you that before I forgot about it. And that was the red light, green light parties, which for the crew were a lot of fun. I think to this day they're still doing them on Carnival, but it's kind of one of those things that kind of float around from ship to ship, and they did it for the crew. And the way it works is they usually shut off part of the ship for a crew party. It usually starts around midnight once the guests are kind of gone to bed or out of public areas, and it's usually, say, the back lounge or back by the pool area. The whole back by the back swimming pool is usually a bar back there. They'll rope all that off, and they have security guards there where you have to show your ID, you have to have your name badge on, and you go into the party. But what they ask you at the door is they say are red or green, and they have little stickers. They're like a little dot, about the size of a penny, and they you say red or green, and red means that you're in a relationship or you're just not interested in meeting anybody. Like you're just there to have a good time. You're not interested in meeting anybody. Green means, hey, I'm open to meeting somebody and hooking up tonight or having a relationship or whatever. And so you put these little stickers on, and it's kind of useful, if you want to meet someone, because when you first get on a cruise ship, say your very first party you go to, you look around, you have no idea who's hooked up, who's single, who's not. You don't know when their contracts are up. And it's usually the first thing someone will ask you if you ask a girl on a date or a guy on a date is, well, when's your contract up? And if you're within, you're going to be on the same ship for a few months, okay, it's worth it. If they're leaving next week, what's the point? But that does still happen. Like I told you the story in the previous video about my friend Omar, who met his wife, Lily, with 2 weeks left in his contract. And they're married to this day still, and that's been, 10 years ago. So it does happen. And, a lot of the people that are on ships, especially the guys, the crew, by the way, is probably 75 to 80% men on any cruise ship. And most of those guys are from, say, Philippines, India, a mirage of countries, but those are two of the most populous countries as far as the crew. And most of them are married, and especially the Filipino guys, I remember they'd be on a ship for 6, 7, 8 months, and I never saw any of them, hook up with anyone. They always were saving their money, sending it back home to their families, and they did that for years and years and years. Some of them were on the ships in their 50s, and they've been working on ships their whole life, supporting not just their immediate family, their wife and children, but his wife's family and his parents, and that was typical of them. And another thing is 90% of everyone that works on a ship has a roommate, everybody. Kind of think college dormitory style. I was always fortunate in all my years of working on ships. My very, very first contract, I never shared a cabin with anybody. And for many, many, many years, I always had a guest cabin. Even as my first job as assistant stage manager, I got a guest cabin, as I mentioned before in the last video. There's always a problem with it. There's a reason why you couldn't sell it to a guest, but I still had a guest cabin with everything that came with it, including room service. Made, cleaned every day, laundry sent out for free, and all that. They also have self-serve laundries on the ships too, so a lot of guys, will do their underwear and socks and stuff themselves, but all their shirts and nice clothes, they'll send them out, and they'll come back the very next day, all for free, cost us nothing. So what else I have here that I want to talk about? Oh yeah, on the Royal Viking, like I said, that was my first cruise line. I did, I think, 3 contracts on 2 different ships, the Sky and the Sea, and there was also the Star. But I was just on the Sky and the Sea. And I was on the Royal Viking Sky, early 80s again, I don't remember what year it was, but they were going to expand the ship. They decided that, there's other cruise lines coming out with bigger ships, and Royal Viking decided to stretch, they called it stretching their ships. And what they planned on doing was to put another section or make the ship bigger. And so what happened was we sailed from Florida, I think Miami, to Bremerhaven in Germany with no passengers at all. And whenever that happens, it's great for the crew, because I mean, they can go to the pool, they can go all over the ship, and they can relax. A lot of people get to sleep and get time off, and you know, it's really good for the crew in many ways. But it's also they were preparing for dry dock. Dry dock is when they take the ship and they float it into a bay in the dry dock area, and below the ship sunk is a big barge that's just bigger than the whole ship. And they line it up just right. It takes hours to line it up. They've got a chain that hangs down, and different ways they do it. I can't tell you how they do it, but they line up this ship with the barge that's sunk beneath them. And then over many, many hours, I've actually been on board while they do this, they pump the water out of the barge, and the barge slowly floats up. And as it floats up, it lifts the entire ship up out of the water, completely out of the water. And then they do whatever they do to ships, they're, painting the hull and fixing things and inside and out. And so the Royal Viking Sky was due for dry dock, which is going to be in Germany, but they were doing a really big thing. They wanted to expand the ship, and the way they wanted to do that is they had a 100-foot section that they were going to insert into the middle of the ship to make it 100 feet longer. And so while we were sailing across the ocean, they had a whole crew on board, of whatever you call them, skilled workers or whatever, and they were cutting the ship in half while we were sailing across the ocean. I kid you not, cutting the ship in half. Literally, the decks, the bulkheads, all that, cut it in half, leaving wires and pipes and stuff hanging however they did it. And of course, the outside of the hull wasn't cut, but everything from the inside out was cut in half. And so we get to Germany, this is more to the story. As we're going across, it takes us like 9 days to cross over. And things are different. Like today, if you're working on a cruise ship and you flip a cigarette butt over the side of the ship, you throw a bottle cap and a beer bottle over the side of the ship, and they see you do it as a crew member, you're fired. There's no warning, you're fired. You're fired immediately. On every cruise line I know of right now, Royal Caribbean, Holland America, Carnival, whatever. But back then it was different. I remember the first time I was on a ship working with the two other stage managers, and we had to clean out our locker. And it was at night. We taught all this stuff we didn't need. There was like a drum kit we didn't need. There was some empty helium tanks that we didn't need, some cardboard sets, some other stuff, just junk and stuff that was in this locker. We didn't need it. And we went out and they tossed it over the side of the ship. Just tossed it all over the side of the ship, everything. And that's just the way it was done. The garbage went off the side of the ship. Every night they were out there tossing things. So we did have an incinerator on board, but all the other stuff just went over the side of the ship. That's just how it was done. This is in the early 1980s. So anyway, up on deck, they had all this stuff. They was putting in new carpet, new TVs, all kinds of things. And new audio-visual equipment was going in the show lounge, which was part of my responsibilities to help with that. And anyway, I go up on deck and there's a great big TV, one of those great big projection TVs. Remember those? And they're going to throw it over the side of the ship. And I rescue. I said, no, I want it. And they said, well, it doesn't work. You can't. It's a PAL or NTSD. There's two different systems, which I didn't realize when I'd never heard of these things since I'm an American. But anyway, it wasn't compatible for some reason with the ship's system. And so all they could do with it was, I guess, hook it up to a video player or something. And they didn't have one for that. So anyway, I take it to my cabin anyway. And there was plants, like great big, like little palm trees and ferns and all this stuff. They was going to throw over the side of the ship. I don't know why, but they're going to toss it over. And so I'm grabbing all these plants, taking them back to my cabin. And my cabin's like a nice guest cabin with a big window. And so my cabin's got big plants in it and everything, great big TV. And I found a VCR, and this is in the days of VHS tapes. And I actually found one of those someplace on the ship and found something else. And somehow, even though I don't know a lot about these things, I figured out a way to hook it all together, and it worked. And keep in mind, I was the assistant stage manager, and so I was in charge of the entire library of movies on board the ship. And there was probably 150, 200 movies in a great big metal cabinet in the projection room, which I had the only key to, the only key. And so, and we get new movies in like every few weeks or something. I get a couple movies sent to me. And what was cool about that is a lot of the officers, senior officers on the ship, they'd want to borrow movies from me to show, you know, to have their girlfriend over. So they all had video players in their cabin, and they wanted to, you know, show a movie, have a girl come over, and they'd say, hey, Mark, can I borrow Back to the Future or Raiders of the Lost Ark or whatever? And I'd loan them the movie, and they'd give it back to me the next day. And so I was in good with all the officers, doctors, all the top brass on the ship. You know, they liked me because I could do them favors. And on ships, it's really useful if people do favors for you. And the other crew members, you know, I couldn't give them to everybody because, you know, there was like, you know, 500 crew members on board. And so the other ones, if they wanted a movie, I would rent them a movie for $2. So I had a nice little business going renting movies. But anyway, I got this thing working, and so I had the biggest TV on the ship in my cabin. And so that was really nice for dates to come over and, you know, watch a movie on the big screen. And I remember one day I was outside of my cabin talking to the musicians who were my neighbors. Back then we'd keep all of our doors open and have like little block parties. And you know, a captain comes walking by, which is no problem. You know, hi Captain, how are you? And he walks by and he glances in, he sees this big TV with a movie on, you know, because I loved it playing. And he goes, whose cabin is that? Where did you get that TV at? But, you know, he let me keep it. He didn't take it away. So anyway, that was the story, but all these things were thrown off the side of the ship. I promised to tell you the story about the monkey. Now this happened on, what ship was that? Oh, this was on, ship was it? It was on Royal Viking. Yeah, that was on Royal Viking too. We were in Brazil in South America. And my girlfriend, Ava, who I mentioned before, she was from Austria. And we had kind of like an on again, off again relationship. And she had a bad habit of just like leaving me places, like not really leaving me, but just wandering off, put it that way. And so we were in Rio one time, and we were walking along. We were going to go to some hotel and go swimming. Back then, it was real easy for crew members to go to resorts and hotels, and you could just go right in and use the pool and all the facilities. And you say, I'm from the ship, can I use the pool? Yeah, sure, they let us in. And we'd hang out and swim all day and have lunch there. Did that all over the world. You know, we were going to do something like that. We're walking along, and I just, you know, we're downtown Rio, and I just turn around, she's gone. I don't know where she is. She's like wandered into a shop, didn't tell me she's going in there. She just would go in, assume I'm psychic to know where she is. And so I said, you know, I got tired of waiting for her. I said, hell, I'm just going to go back to the ship, you know. So I'm walking back to the ship, and I see this guy, and he's got these little monkeys. I mean, little monkeys, like would fit in a wine glass. And they were pygmy marmosets. I will try and remember to put a link on this video to what a pygmy marmoset looks like. But he had two of them left. And I was looking at them, so, you know, how much are they? And it was like $10 for a monkey. And I didn't know what I was going to do with it, but I just had to save one. I had like $10 on me. I would have bought both. I remember I didn't have enough money to buy them both. So I gave him $10, and it came in a little basket. It's a little woven basket, like, you know, not that much bigger than the monkey, with a string on it. And the top came off like that, like an egg, And so he puts the monkey in there, puts the top back on, there's your monkey. And so I didn't know what I was going to do with it. I said, I guess I could let it go, but we're downtown Rio. It's not really, you know, the jungle. And when I was younger, I'll go into this in some other videos, but when I was a teenager, I was in a club called the Junior Zoologist Society, Junior Zoologist Club in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I used to go to the zoo every Saturday morning before it even opened up and go behind the scenes and help feed animals and learn about animals. And I'd even take animals on kids' TV shows like the Skipper Rouse Show and the Uncle Al Show and a bunch of other kiddie shows with animals and do that. And the zoo used to give me animals to take care of that were like, say if a hawk or an owl was found in somebody's backyard and it was injured, or they would give it to me and I'd nurse it back to health and then give it back to the zoo or whatever, and they'd see that it was set free. And they'd give me a monkey at one time, a squirrel monkey, which is a different animal, a squirrel monkey, and I had taken care of that and then given it back. So I knew a little bit about animals. So I thought I could save this monkey. So then I bring it back to my cabin, and it doesn't take long. Everybody on the ship, you know, as far as the crew, they all know about the monkey. And everybody kept it quiet. Nobody said anything. My cabin stewardess, who was from Norway, she didn't say anything. And he was a little tiny thing, and he was so gentle. He would sit in your hand like that, and with his little paws holding, you know, my hand like this, and I'd feed him little fruits and stuff. And I just let him run loose in the cabin while I was gone, because I had all the plants in there. And I'd come back from working, sometimes after 5-6 hours, he'd come running up like a little puppy and wanted me to hold him. And I had him on the ship for like 3 or 4 months, and he was doing fine. And everybody kind of knew about it. And I went to sign off. Ava and I signed off the same day in Rio, because we were sailing up the Amazon River and different places down South America. So we signed off the ship together, and what I did, I took my camera bag and I cut out all the pockets. I had like a 35 millimeter camera, and I cut it all out on the inside, made him like a little apartment inside there. And so I put the monkey in the camera bag, and we stayed in a hotel in Rio for about a week, did touristy things, and then she went back to Austria, and I was supposed to go back to America. And the way it worked back then, I'm not sure how it is now, but this is just for Brazil. If you were a foreigner and you were leaving Brazil, they sent a government official to pick you up at your hotel in a van and take you to the airport and see you off. They weren't searching you or questioning you or anything. They just like, I don't know if it was a service or what, but you had to be picked up by this official. And this guy shows up at the hotel in a van. Back then I had tons of luggage, because they didn't weigh your luggage back then. I used to bring I'd bring books and things along. You know, I had probably at least 150 pounds worth of luggage, and like 4 or 5 bags, all this stuff, piles in the van, and the monkey, you know, I'm holding on to him. And as we're going to the airport, the monkey starts going, toot, 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 toot. He's looking around, the guy driver's going, what's that? What's that sound? What is that? I don't know. We get to the airport, and of course I had like a 4-hour wait before I got on the plane. And he calmed down. I was feeding him a little bit and everything, and checked in on my luggage. And I went through the security, but they have the x-ray machines back then. I just put him in the bag, through the belt. They didn't see nothing. I guess he was invisible to the x-ray. So I get through security, no problem. Get on the plane, and I was flying from Louisville to Miami, or from Rio to Miami, Miami to Louisville. Fortunately, I got on the plane. This is back when the planes weren't that crowded. I had a whole row to myself. And so all throughout the flight, he was an angel. There was no problems at all. I'd open it up, I took him in the bathroom and held him, and he was fine, you know, the whole way there. And we get to Miami, and there's a big sign. If you've ever flown into Miami, you've seen this sign. And it's a huge sign if you're coming from another country. And it says, you know, anyone caught bringing in drugs, plants, animals, small animals will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. And basically words to that effect. So I get through immigration, go through security, you know, and again, all my luggage goes through, check through again, and camera bag, I just sent it through there. And what I did this time is I piled a bunch of stuff on there and like put him in the middle, so he kind of like, they'd have to look at everything in the whole bag. And I don't think the technology is anywhere what it is today, obviously, you know, 38 years ago. You know, I got him through, no problem. Get on the next plane, fly to Louisville, and it's in the wintertime. My father's picking me up at the airport. And my dad picks me up, so, oh, how was your trip? You know, it was great. So what'd you bring back from Rio? A monkey. Guess what? Show him the monkey. And my dad was totally cool. Like, he was used to me when I was a kid. I brought home all kinds of stuff. Snakes, I had falcons, I had 2 owls, great horned owls, a white one and a brown one, red-tailed hawks, kestrels. I had a pet crow named Corvix that flew around outside and would talk to me. So he was kind of used to me bringing home animals. Anyway, he was totally fine with it. And I was staying with my parents at the time, because on the ships, I'd only be home for like a month or two, then I'd be back out to sea for 6 months, so I'd always stay with them. Anyway, what I wanted to do is, my whole plan was to save this little monkey. It's a pygmy marmoset, by the way. I don't know if I said that before. That's what it was, a pygmy marmoset. And I'll tell you the sad story about what I found out. I found this out later. I didn't know at the time, but I found this out later. What these guys, like, that sold it to me, what they would do, there was a little island off the coast of Rio, like, you know, a couple miles offshore. And there was a lot of these pygmy marmosets living there. And what these guys would do, go out there with an air rifle, they would kill the mother, take the baby, and sell them to tourists. So if you bought it, you know, you were supporting them. If you didn't buy it, it would die. So it was a no-win situation. I used to also buy the turtles. They used to sell these turtles all over, you know, Rio on the streets there. So I used to buy those and let them go in the river in the Amazon. That worked out fine. But anyway, so first thing I did is I called the Louisville Zoo. And I said, look, got this pygmy marmoset, endangered species. I just want to sell him, you know, I just want to, you know, turn him over to the zoo. I'm trying to save his life. And they said, I'm sorry, we cannot accept any primates without papers. They have to have papers that they were brought in the country legally. And I tried to talk them into it, they wouldn't listen to me. So I hang up the phone. Again, this is the wintertime. These animals, like, they live in the canopy of the rainforest. And they're not just eating like fruits and stuff, which is what I was giving them, fruits and nuts and things. They're eating like birds' eggs, they're eating insects, you know, things I just didn't have. And also they're social animals, like they're in a whole group. They're used to being around, you know, a whole bunch of their whole little family in the canopy of the rainforest. And he's living in a house in Kentucky in the, you know, the heat, and just, you know, it's just not the same. You know, the humidity's different, everything's different. And they're very sensitive animals. Anyway, he kept getting weaker and weaker. And one day I went in there to feed him and he had died. I'd had him home for not even a month. And this is the true story, fact, what happened. The same day he died, the exact same day, the zoo calls me back. Oh, we had a meeting, we decided we'll take him after all. I said, sorry, he died. And so what I did, I went out into the forest of Louisville. I dug a hole about 2 feet deep in the clay, and I buried him there very carefully. And I'm hoping that, like, a million years from now, some archaeologist digs them up and thinks that at one time there were monkeys in Kentucky. So anyway, that's my monkey story. Let's see, there's something else I wanted to tell you. Yeah, this is a quick one. Going back to throwing stuff over the side of the ship. Frankly, I was appalled when I found this out. Like, when I go there and they said, you know, what do we do with this over the side of the ship? You know, I just was appalled, but that's the way it was done back then, everything. I was on the SS Norway, same situation. We were sailing, and I didn't finish my story about the Royal Viking. When we got over to Bremerhaven, we got over to Bremerhaven, right, and they took us off the ship, put us up in hotels. And what they did, they cut the outside of the ship apart, and I guess there was 2 barges. They floated the 2 parts apart, and then they floated in the new 100-foot section, welded it all in, did all the stuff inside, hooking everything back up. And when we sailed back to Miami, the ship just looked 100 feet longer. You could never tell anything was happening inside or out, but you're walking down the promenade deck, and all of a sudden there's this huge bar that wasn't there before, and there's rooms there that weren't there before. And down on the crew deck, in the crew area, you could walk along, and the only difference was the tile would change the color of the tile. That's the only way you could tell that you were in the new section. So it's pretty cool that they did that. But anyway, on the Norway, SS Norway, which is a really old ship. It used to be the France. It was the SS France, like in the 1960s. Very old ship. Even had the class system like the Titanic had. Like, there was steerage, first class, you know, all the different classes. And so the ship was like a maze. Like, if you were in first class and you were in steerage, or you were in like a regular cabin, it was really hard to get to another part of the ship, because you had to go through like a maze to find your way through, because it was designed to keep, you know, certain people away from each other. And even though that when I was on there, the whole ship was for everybody, it was still hard to find your way around. You know, if you were in a suite and you wanted to go someplace else, it's kind of hard to get there. But anyway, on that ship, they were doing a dry dock, and it's going to be again over in Europe. And so again, we're sailing across the ocean with no guests on board. And they had taken they were replacing all the TVs on the ship. And so taking out all the TVs, and all these TVs, you know, hundreds of TVs, they're all sitting on deck. And on the port start of the ship, all these TVs were sitting over there. And there was all this carpet that they ripped out of the ship, and all this other stuff, furniture and things they were all replacing. And on the other side of the ship, on the starboard side, were all the new TVs that were going to be, you know, installed in the cabins. And also new sound and lighting equipment that was going to be installed in the theater, just like we did on the other ship. You know, new spotlights, new, you know, lighting for the theater, the Fresnels and the different types of lights. What else? Oh, and all the tools for there was a company from New York that came to do all the installation. And so they were sailing with us all the way across, and these were the professionals who can be installing all this technical stuff in the theater. And also other guys are going to be putting in all the TVs. Well, anyway, it was getting really messy up on deck because there's, you know, cardboard boxes and carpeting and all this stuff just piled up all over, you know, on the promenade deck on both sides of the ship. You know, new stuff on the right side, on the port side, all the old stuff on the starboard side. Captain comes walking by, Norwegian captain, and he goes, you know, what the F is all this stuff doing here? You know, we need to get this cleared up, you know, it's a mess. And he goes to the crew, Filipino and Indian crew, and he's shouting at them, you know, get this cleaned up, you know, over the side, throw it over the side, get it done, and storms off. And of course, you know, these guys, they probably, first they're scared to death because it's the captain yelling at them. And second, you know, probably every other word they understood what he was saying to them. And so what they did, they threw everything over the side of the ship, the new stuff and the old stuff. So the captain comes by later and it's all spotlessly clean. They swept and everything. And the guys from New York come by, where's our stuff? What happened to our stuff? Where did you take it down to the theater? Everything was gone. New TVs, new light board, new soundboard, you know, millions of dollars worth of stuff. All their tools, their personal tools, they had those big Craftsman red toolboxes, you know, with all their special tools in there, over the side of everything, they threw it over the side of the ship. Oh, there was some very, very pissed off people that day, very pissed off. But I was laughing hard. It was funny. So that's, I think, what we're going to wrap it up with this video, 27 minutes. Got some more stories to tell you about a charter that I did the very first, I'll tell you in the next video. I was again on the SS Norway, and it was chartered by Disney, and they were beta testing the whole idea of having a Disney cruise line, and I was the stage manager on board the Norway at the time, and it was my job to take out the show that was on there, which is My Fair Lady, and install the Disney show, which is Making Memories. Then we're going to do 2 back-to-back 7-day cruises with nothing but people that work for Disney, like the top people from Disney, their families, their friends, and beta test what it would be like to have a Disney cruise line. And there's some bizarre stories there, and I'll tell you all that in part 3 of my early years of working on a cruise ship. So thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate all your comments, and thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye.